The idea of robots becoming conscious and developing souls is a rather tired trope that has been done basically to death. In fact, it dates all the way back to what is generally considered to be the first robot story as we conceive of it today ever told. Carol Capek's classic play Rossum's Universal Robots, a work which actually served to introduce the term robot into our lexicon. And there have been so many variations on the theme since, such as the films Short Circuit, I, Robot, Ex Machina, etc. You get the picture. The notion of machines becoming sentient is pretty commonplace, but I'll bet that you've never seen it done quite the way it's done in Ergo Proxy, a 2006 anime series which is unquestionably one of the finest I have ever had the pleasure of viewing, and which may in fact be my favorite of all time now, perhaps even supplanting Attack on Titan, something I did not think would ever happen, but this show may just have done it. So, what is Ergo Proxy exactly? Well, Ergo Proxy is a work of science fiction which takes place in a distant post apocalyptic future where, after an environmental catastrophe that killed nearly all life on Earth, what humans remain live in domed cities and are aided in their day to day activities by robotic assistants called autoraves. However, a virus known as the Cogito virus is endowing these autoraves with self awareness. And of course, this causes problems because the auto raves realize that their existence is kind of shitty, and so friction ensues. We are introduced to Riel, an inspector assigned to investigate a series of murders committed by Cogito infected auto raves, and in the course of her investigation, encounters two humanoid entities which she comes to learn are called proxies, and is set upon a course of pursuing a young man named Vincent Law, who has some kind of connection to one of these proxies and who is at the center of kind of unraveling the mystery of their world as it stands and their place within it. You know, I had never really heard of Ergo Proxy until very recently, and that's a real shame because it goes to show just how underrated this show really is, which is unfortunate since it is of fantastic quality. It is not without flaw, I will say. I believe shortcomings do exist. However, the sheer ambition of it, the sheer audacity of it, is enough to make it stand highly in my regard, and I believe that the writing of the story and its characters is quite strong. Now, while the trajectory of the plot may be fairly easy to summarize, the thematic material at play within the story of Ergo Proxy is much more difficult to explain because this show deals with a lot. This series deals with so many philosophical concepts that it honestly threatens to kind of drown the story. And that's sort of both a compliment and a criticism because while I adore stories that have a lot under the hood, so to speak, I believe also that the main weakness of Ergo Proxy, perhaps the only real weakness, is that it kind of bites off more than it can chew. This show only ran for 23 episodes. It's just a one season show, but it packed a lot in, and maybe ultimately it tried to do too much. So, in the course of this series, Riel, the inspector, has to go on a journey across the desolated world outside the dome with Vincent Law, the nature of whose relationship with the mysterious proxies is much more intimate than she could ever imagine. As well, they are accompanied in their travels by a childlike autorave who has become infected with the Cogito virus named Pino, surely one of the most endearing characters to ever grace an anime, and the real heart of the show, I think. So, this show is immediately pretty existential. It deals a lot with the nature of existence and reality and our perceptions of and place within those things. I say there are some serious Philip K. Dick vibes going on here. The virus which lends consciousness to the robots is called the Cogito virus, a reference to Rene Descartes' statement cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am. In addition, there's a lot in here about the purpose of life because within these domed cities, every person and every auto-rave is created with a raison d'etre, which is a French term which means reason for being. The society of this world is based around utility, where every human and robot is made with an express function in mind. And when these functions are met or expended, no one really knows what to do. Of course, one of the foundational tenets of existentialism is that life has no inherent meaning, but rather we assign meaning and value to it through our outlook and actions. And this show is definitely loaded with that kind of thing because as these characters grow, and that's the great thing that these characters actually have real arcs over the course of this series, as these characters grow and become more aware of themselves and their stations within this world, they begin to question the purposes for which they have been built, as well as to fashion their own reasons for being. Beyond just the existentialism, though, Ergo Proxy is a very Gnostic story. When I say it's Gnostic, what I mean is that one of the base beliefs of Gnosticism is that what we take as God, as creator, is merely itself a creation of an even higher power. Within the show, the proxies are immensely powerful beings that are regarded as essentially gods. However, it is ultimately revealed that the proxies are in fact the products of someone else. In other words, they function within this story basically as archons of a sort. As well, there's quite a bit of pondering about the nature of godhood and whether imperfect creations are evidence of an imperfect creator. So, yeah, I think it definitely has a decidedly Gnostic bent to it. Now, I thought for the most part the show did a pretty good job of infusing the philosophy into the story until the end, that is. Towards the end, it did get a bit clunky, I thought, especially in that last episode, because without spoiling anything, they really threw a lot of shit at the wall. So much so that I'm not entirely really sure what to make of it. It's definitely something you have to think on, I'll say that. But if a story is going to have a flaw, I'd rather it be the flaw of being overstuffed than understuffed. That is, I'd rather have too much content than too little. And narratively, I think Ergo Proxy did a great job of keeping the viewer on their toes because there were some major twists and reveals in here that I really didn't see coming. And I think they were mostly well done. I don't think they ever felt cheap or undercooked or unearned, so it's pretty solid in that regard, I feel. And even though I think the show did get bogged down in the philosophy a little bit and kind of labored under the weight of its own ponderances, it still did a great job of rounding out its characters and making them feel human because these characters really do change over the course of this series. And that's what I love to see. All of the three principal characters, Riel, Vincent, and Pino, start out as one thing but become another by the end. Riel at the onset is pretty frigid, gives off real Ice Queen kind of vibes, very business minded, task oriented, no real sense of humor to speak of. But we see her warm, we see her thaw and become more emotive and connective, and it's really rewarding to see. Vincent starts out as kind of weak, very passive, and sort of cowardly, but he comes to be more assertive and have more of a will and more of a backbone, I guess. And Pino starts out as a literal machine, unthinking and just abiding by her programming. But as the series wears on, she develops a greater sense of self awareness, develops a soul, in other words, and ultimately becomes more human like. And so I think this show did a pretty fantastic job, honestly, when it comes to character writing. So, what can I say about Ergo Proxy? This show was so immersive to me, so enthralling to me, that I really didn't want it to end. And that's high honors, I would say. Pretty much everything about this series I absolutely loved. It really scratched an itch I wasn't even really aware I had. The art style is gorgeous. It uses a rather muted color palette, so it kind of has a Zack Snyder feel to it, but I liked that, and I think it really suited the atmosphere of the story being told. Even the intro to this show I just adored because it was so 2006. You've got dark, kind of macabre imagery overplayed by angsty mid 2000s butt rock, and I don't know, I just loved it. It kind of took me back, I guess, because if you put on some angsty mid 2000s butt rock like Breaking Benjamin or Stained, I'm a happy man. And this show really did make me a happy man. And so it's just really sad how criminally underrated it is because I thought it was such a great experience and one that's pretty unique. I can't really compare Ergo Proxy to a lot else. I mean, it does have definite Blade Runner vibes to it, but ultimately, it did its own thing and went its own way. And I gotta say, I'm glad I got to experience it and I really cherished it. So, yeah, Ergo Proxy. Have you seen Ergo Proxy? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, whether you enjoyed it as much as I did. I would love to hear your take on it. If you haven't seen Ergo Proxy, please give it a look. If you like anime or if you like cerebral, intellectual, thought provoking entertainment, then this is well worth your time. This very well may be, again, my favorite anime now, and if this video could in any way increase its viewership, then I would be very pleased by that. And as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to like, subscribe, help the channel out a little bit. I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, peace.